November is getting close, and that means that the election is right around the corner. For quality coverage of all aspects of the election and expert analysis on top stories from around the world, there's no better place than the DSR Network. Members of the DSR Network get exclusive access to members-only segments of our podcasts, an ad-free listening experience, and access to our Slack and Discord communities where you can connect with fellow members and us. For the month of September, use code SNARK for 30% off your subscription at thedsrnetwork.com/buy. That's code SNARK at thedsrnetwork.com/buy. Now please enjoy the show.
This is the Daily Blast from the New Republic, produced and presented by the DSR Network. I'm your host, Greg Sargent. In recent days, prominent MAGA figures, including the Trump campaign, J.D. Vance, and Senator Ted Cruz, have pushed a repulsive lie that Haitian immigrants are eating people's pets. Though this was decisively debunked, Vance actually called on Trump supporters to keep on pushing versions of the lie. We think this saga and Vance's handling of it exposes something deeply disturbing about how MAGA propaganda and dehumanization campaigns really function. And today we're talking about this with Matthew Sheffield, a writer and podcaster at a progressive site called Flux, who used to be a member of the conservative movement but turned on it and is now an illuminating critic of the American right's pathologies. Great to have you on, Matthew.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me, Greg.
So this all centers on Springfield, Ohio, which has seen a big influx of Haitian immigrants. Someone in Springfield apparently posted on Facebook that an acquaintance found their missing cat getting prepped to be eaten at the home of a Haitian neighbor. That was picked up by right-wing media, the Trump campaign Twitter account pushed a version of it, etc., etc. Then a spokesperson for the city of Springfield said there have been no credible reports of any pets being harmed or abused by immigrants. Matt, you're like a connoisseur of right-wing disinformation and propaganda. How does this one fit into the basic patterns you've observed?
Well, it pretty much is the same as all of them. They all kind of follow this same general template that they identify a target that is, a vulnerable population, generally speaking, and then they proceed to make up any number of things about it and do not care whether what they're saying is true or not, because accuracy and factuality is not the goal. The goal is to push the message, and the message in this case is that we want to deport millions of people in the United States, and we want this to be a country for white people. That is the goal.
Well, here's where J.D. Vance enters the picture. He picks this up and pushes it, but then on Tuesday, he admitted that rumors about Haitian immigrants and pets just might be false. Then he did a little outrage dance about how immigrants still are responsible for all kinds of awful things that happen to Americans. And then he said, fellow patriots, keep the cat memes flowing. I mean, he's basically telling MAGA Nation that they should keep on spreading lies about immigrants, that this is justified by the supposed suffering that they're inflicting on Americans. Matt, I think this is a window into MAGA. Isn't he really telling them to relish and enjoy the dehumanization of immigrants with lies as a way to keep them energized and mobilized?
He absolutely is doing that. And, and that's the thing, like a lot of times people will ask me, as somebody who was formerly in right-wing media, do they really believe this stuff? And that's the wrong question to be asking, because they don't care whether any of it's true. They don't care whether anything they say is true. What they care about is, what can I do with this message? And so what does it get me if I say it? This is the quintessential mode of right-wing messaging, which is, we will say something and we don't care whether it's a lie.
What are they really trying to do with that, though? I mean, it's a mobilizing device, isn't it?
Well, it is. And yeah, like the right-wing audience is overwhelmingly motivated by conspiracy theories and conspiracies against immigrants who are from Haiti and are Black, these are kind of catnip to the right-wing audience. They want to hear these stories. They want them to be true. They believe them generally to be true. And so if the elites can push a racist message in a way that they can have at least a smidgen of plausible deniability. Well, look, we found a Black speaker at Springfield City Hall saying this. Then they're going to do that. And so this is a way for them to kind of pretend that they're not being racist when everybody knows that, in fact, they are.
I want to home in on a propaganda device that I think MAGA is using here. So Vance put out this long tweet in which he floated a whole new series of claims about Haitians. I think this is a proxy for a broader set of claims about immigrants generally. He says they're causing rising diseases, hurting local schools, otherwise blaming them for various societal ills. Now, everyone focuses on the cat craziness, but meanwhile, Vance smuggles out all these other claims about immigrants, and those largely pass unnoticed. But I guarantee you, MAGA followers are hearing them and are very attuned to them. Can you kind of talk about how that sort of subterranean communication works? You know, you say a bunch of stuff that gets the libs triggered, and that gets all the attention. Meanwhile, a bunch of other stuff gets smuggled underneath it to the audiences that they're trying to energize and reach. That's a standard technique, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And they do it also with things like deliberately misspelling things or making grammatical errors. They know that they don't have arguments or like provable, cogent arguments to make their case for something. So what they do instead is that they smuggle in just a series of tropes. They use tropes, and that's what this is that they will say something deliberately outrageous or attention-getting as a way of getting people to come into contact with other tropes, which they may not have time to look into themselves, and which the journalists who are covering the allegations, as you said, are not. They also are not looking into those because, when you look at crime figures, it's pretty unanimous that people who are coming to the United States are less likely to commit crimes than native-born citizens. And then from an economic standpoint, on average, it is the case that immigrants help countries because they will go into jobs that businesses need done, whether you like that or not. And there are other implications of it, but these are the general facts.
Can you talk a little bit about right-wing meme culture? Does it reach large numbers of people? Talk a little bit about the history of and the development of this type of way of communicating. You've been steeped in it a long time. How effective is it really?
It's extremely effective, especially because it's never called for what it is in news media reporting about it. So they will respond to the specific claims, but they won't respond to the general tactic and the general framing. So the media, when they encounter specific local instances of claims or specific small claims that are made, they will attempt to fact check the claim itself at the new claim. And you see with Trump, though, is that with his lies, what he does is that he just repeats the lies so often and for so long that the media stop fact checking those claims. So like you see that, for instance, with his on the immigration question, that he claims that countries are emptying their prisons and their asylums and sending those people across the border illegally. That's never been true. So what he does, though, is that he just builds these tropes up and myths, and he repeats them so often that the news media don't want to debunk it anymore because their natural inclination is to say, well, that's old news. That's an old lie. Everybody knows that's not true. And that's just simply false. That is in need of a fact check itself.
What does the constant repetition of it actually accomplish?
Well, it accomplishes a few things. One is that, again, because they don't have real facts to justify their policy viewpoints, what they have is tropes, and tropes and lies. And so these become the justifications for the policy outcomes that they say they want. And then they say, well, nobody ever fact checks these things, so they must be true. When in fact they were fact checked, but it was 9 months ago, and you didn't see it, and you're not seeing it now. So it's basically building the case for these ideas, and this is a long-standing right-wing tactic. Lionel Trilling, the mid-20th century political commentator, he famously had observed that there are no ideas in conservative or reactionary conservative or reactionary Americans. There are irritable mental gestures. And that's really what this is. They've never stopped doing this. And they do this on all issues. So like they did that with the school boards and the Moms for Liberty group, that they were going off and claiming that the children were being, very exposed to, strip clubs in high school or elementary school. And of course, that wasn't true either. And now Trump has moved on and made a variation of that argument, falsely claiming that schools are performing gender reassignment surgeries on their students. Like, these are obvious, ludicrous lies. But if you add up a number of lies on top of each other, they become a worldview. And that's what this is here.
Right. In fact, you can sort of look at this in the context of Trump's vow to carry out mass removals of immigrants from the country if he's elected, using, vast deportation camps and potentially the military. What they're really saying when they talk about these Haitian immigrants this way is, get ready, everybody. We're going to kick the shit out of them and you're going to love it. That's what they really mean.
It is.
They're building up energy, right? They're building up energy behind this.
They are. And that's why they try to focus so much on, specific individuals who commit crimes, various people who might have engaged in, shooting somebody or whatever, and of course the reality is, in a country of over 300 million people, that we've got, all kinds of crime that you could look at as a justification for any possible policy outcome. But this is the problem of why the mainstream media and why journalists have to look at the larger context. Because when you see somebody showing up at a school board who's got this perfectly printed sign and they have all their slogans coordinated, they're coming from a national propaganda operation, and you are their instrument if you're not careful.
Well, to your point about them not having real arguments, Ron Filipkowski posted video of a news segment in which the CEO of a factory that manufactures welded parts for the auto and farm industry said his workforce is 10% Haitians. This is in Springfield. So listen to what he said about them.
Our Haitian associates come to work every day. They don't have a drug problem. They'll stay at their machine. They'll achieve their numbers. They are here to work. And so in general, that's a stark difference from what we're used to in our community.
So the dark thing here is that these are upstanding, hardworking people who work in manufacturing. I'm talking about the Haitian immigrants. I mean, aren't these the sort of people who J.D. Vance is supposed to valorize? Yet MAGA pulls sort of relentlessly towards this disgusting race baiting, which doesn't permit for them to acknowledge the value of these people in any way.
No, it doesn't. And also, that undermines their claim that they're supposedly concerned about illegal immigrants, when in fact these Haitians are in the United States legally. Right. And so, so it is about race. It is about otherization. And that's really what it that J.D. Vance supposedly wants people who, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, this is literally what these people are doing. They came to a foreign country and are working brutal manufacturing jobs that the Americans who live around them don't want to take for whatever reason. If that's what the worldview that you supposedly have, you should love these people. But in fact, that is not the worldview that they have. The worldview that they have is that everything should be in a hierarchy with, billionaire white Christians on the top, and everybody else falls down the line in the great chain of being, if you will.
Well, I mean, J.D. Vance has this sort of idea that virtuous Midwestern factory work is the foundation of a virtuous working class, middle class life. And this is something he says all the time in various contexts. And so I guess having Haitians work in factories intrudes on that sort of tidy picture he's creating of the sort of ideal society he wants.
Yeah, if he actually believed it, that's what he would be saying. But yeah, this is actually, this is a movement about, preserving white Christian heteronormative, viewpoints, and that's really what it's about. But they know that they can't win election if they say what they actually want. And like this was one of the things that got me concerned about and why I left the right before Donald Trump. That, once I had been somebody who was a secular conservative, secular moderate conservative, and that was my worldview. And I thought that Republicans were more moderate than Democrats were, and that was why I was on their side. But then once I actually got underneath the public facade and started moving higher up in the operative food chain, then I actually got to see what they were really saying to each other behind closed doors, and it was alarming and appalling.
What was it? Tell us.
They really did believe that the Democrats were servants of Satan. They really did believe that. And that was something that I thought they just, would sometimes say to the rubes to get them to vote for him. But in fact, many of the operatives absolutely believe this. And that's just as an example of that, the Moms for Liberty group, which, it is a bona fide hate group. And they absolutely are trying to censor and crush any kind of dissent. But they have the full 100%, even now, cooperation of the very highest levels of the Republican Party. And they just had their convention, and Donald Trump spoke to it. He sat there and did an interview for like an hour or so. But at the same convention, they had a speaker who came on the stage and said that I used to be a lesbian, and now I'm not, thanks to Jesus, because I realized that that homosexuality is a demonic spiritual attack on me. This is what the highest levels of the Republican Party believe. And once I came to understand that, I had to get the hell out.
I have actually noticed that Vance seems to believe some form of these things. There's been a lot written about how he kind of converted to Trumpism from his previous stance, which was, never Trump or anti-Trump or whatever it was. I do think that Vance has somehow come around to the actual view. It's not just opportunism. He's come around to the actual view that in some sense, Trump was kind of a providential figure who exposed the deep rot of liberal corruption. And so basically pretty much anything is justified to keep him in power, including, as he now has been saying, January 6th. He doesn't quite say January 6th was just fine, but he's out there now saying that he would have done what Mike Pence refused to do, which would have been illegal and unconstitutional. So, this kind of idea that Trump exposed the rot of liberal corruption in our system is really deeply dangerous because it basically justifies anything to keep him in power.
Well, it does. And it's also why it's important to note that Donald Trump didn't do this to the Republican Party. Like the Atlantic just this week came out with this big long cover story saying how, look at all these pusillanimous Republicans, how cowardly they were. They bent the knee to Donald Trump. Look at them. And look, there's nothing wrong with that idea per se, but it's not the full context. The full context is that we have in the United States a very large, sizable minority of people who believe that they are God's personal servants, and therefore anything that they do is right. Any lie that they tell doesn't matter. Any crime they commit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you have to break some eggs to make an omelet, and that's why the marriage between them and Donald Trump, it wasn't him forcing anything on them. He was just simply coming at their worldview and their epistemology from a slightly different viewpoint. His comes from narcissism and theirs comes from religious narcissism, but that's the same endpoint.
He does seem to instinctually know how to talk to these people. I want to return to Vance's call for MAGA to keep on posting memes, amplifying the lie about Haitian immigrants. I've kind of come to think that the act of serial unchecked lying, especially about vulnerable people, others, has itself become a way to express solidarity with Trump and MAGA. Well, the liberal media says this isn't true. Well, screw you. We're going to say it anyway. It's like the lying itself is a declaration of power, of the power to say what reality is. How does that work, do you think?
It definitely does work that way because it goes back to the core ideas, which is, as I was saying, that, they believe that even though we can't prove our biblical fundamentalist viewpoints are true, they're still true. And so therefore, what we say is the truth. And what Donald Trump says is the truth. And even if it doesn't necessarily map to the reality now, it will later. And this was a viewpoint that existed among Republicans before Donald Trump, of course, famously with that anonymous quote that was, allegedly said by Karl Rove about, you guys progressives live in the reality-based community. Well, we shape reality. We control what reality is. And so the idea of that, we can say things that may or may not be true. It doesn't matter, because ultimately our larger point is true, that immigrants are a cancer on the country. And maybe this story isn't true, but it doesn't matter because our belief is true. And our belief in Donald Trump is true as well.
And when the mass deportations start, we're really going to make that true.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll make up all kinds of things, and it's, and you see this not just on immigration, but also like on trans athletes, for instance. So like they went, and during the Olympics, we're talking about an Olympian who is and always was a heterosexual cisgender woman, and they were falsely claiming her to be a transgender woman who had been born as a man, and like it didn't matter. They knew that it wasn't true. But they believe in their larger point and their larger emotive destination that any lie is not just permissible, it's good, that it's a positive.
If it's being told about the right kind of other.
That's right.
Matthew Sheffield, thanks so much for coming on with us.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks.
Everybody, please check out some new content we have up at TNR.com. Parker Malloy arguing that the media has to do more than just debunk the lie about Haitians and pets, and Timothy Noah arguing that the GOP is playing chicken with our budget at the worst possible time. And over on the Deep State Radio podcast, check out David Rothkopf's conversation with Max Boot on his latest book, Reagan, His Life and Legend. Also check out the latest episode of DSR's Words Matter, where Norm Ornstein and Kavita Patel analyze the Trump and Harris campaigns going into the debate. We'll see you all tomorrow. You've been listening to The Daily Blast with me, your host, Greg Sargent. The Daily Blast is a New Republic podcast and is produced by Riley Fessler on the DSR Network.